All right, we've already learned how to cook steak, so why do I have another steak on the grill? Because I want to make it taste as though it came from the Mediterranean. So let me take this New York strip steak and move it right over here. We're going to let it rest for a while so that the juices that are currently under pressure because the meat is so hot and pressing out can relax a little bit and go back to where they really belong. If I were to cut this steak right now, the juices would wash all over the cutting board and they'd be lost. So, a great piece of beef. What I'm going to do next is make a quick sauce, kind of a Sicilian sauce, to go with this wonderful piece of grilled meat. I've got a pan on the heat, and there's no reason that you can't cook over live fire using a pan. Cast iron, I think, is a great choice, and so I chose a nice cast iron Griswold here. And what I'm going to do is begin with a little bit of olive oil in the pan. And here's 3 cloves of garlic. 1, 2, 3. Just crush them and add them to the pan. Already, this is sizzling. And I've got some vegetables here. I'm going to add some celery, which takes a little bit of time to cook. So that goes in as well. I like it a little spicy. And in the southern part of Italy, they might have a special Calabrian pepper, but if you have a jalapeno or a serrano on hand, I would say just dice that up and throw that into the mix. We'll give that a little swirl around. If you've got a nice hot fire, be a little bit careful with the garlic. I left it in big pieces because burnt garlic is not really that great tasting. It gets bitter very quickly. And if it's cooking faster than you might like, then you can just pluck it out. One of the challenges with cooking over a grill like this is that you don't have the luxury of turning the knob up and down. So a little insurance like being able to take that garlic out if it's burning is a nice idea. Also creating zones so I can move this to a cooler part of the grill or a hotter part of the grill is a great little strategy when you're cooking. All right, next, I'm going to add some tomatoes, and I'm going to cut up this tomato right here. I've got some others that are already diced up. This has been peeled already. The nice thing about that is that when it cooks, the peels don't fall off. Sometimes they look like Band-Aids floating around in your sauce, and that's never nice for anyone. Once you can smell that garlic, you know that the browning is not far off. So, tomatoes go in. I've got some capers as well. When we season this later on, recognize that capers are really salty. So if you don't exercise a little bit of care, you can over-season this dish really quickly. So what am I looking for here? Well, I want the flavors to mingle together. I want the celery to get a little bit more tender. And I want these tomatoes to begin to fall apart into a very simple sauce. And it won't take very long. I'm going to add another salty ingredient, olives, black olives. So I would hazard a guess, and that is that we won't need to add any salt to this preparation. And then finally, I have some oregano right here. And I'm going to chop that just a little bit. This is a rustic preparation, so if I leave it in bigger pieces, I don't think that's the end of the world. That's really one of my tricks for making a rustic dish look exactly that way, look rustic. You know, leave your herbs in sort of larger pieces. That sauce is almost done. I want it to be a little richer, and so I'm going to add some more oil. And just a quick taste will tell me if we need any more salt. Maybe just a hair. It's mostly pepper I want to put in. Remember that we have in there already the chili pepper. So that can cook very happily on its own. And what I'm going to do is take this steak, and it's had a chance to rest now, so we're going to slice this up. It's got nice browning on it. That's where the flavor comes from in cooked meat, is the browning. And I'm going to transfer this over to the plate, just like this. And the thing I wanted to share with you is this, that I have two steaks here. One was cut a little bit thicker, and it's a nice medium rare. You can sort of see the color of it here. This one is thin enough that it's a little bit difficult to get the right browning that you want without it overcooking. We can take a look. I would say this is closer to medium. And I left it on to get the browning I wanted, but if you want a piece of meat that's cooked a little bit less than medium, then you're better off with a thicker sliced piece of meat. Now, as this meat cooked on the grill, some of the juices dribbled off and took with it some of the seasoning, so just a hair more salt on there. And I'm going to spoon this sauce over the top. And there's an idea that I'm just coming around to. It used to be when I was growing up, if you were having steak off the grill, everyone got their own steak, and that was just the way it was. And you told the cook how you wanted it cooked. I think those two steaks are plenty of meat for 4, maybe even 6 people with a nice selection of other vegetables and starches. So there you have it. A steak prepared in a way that makes it taste as though it came from Sicily. Another great trick I want to share with you about grilling, I saw for the first time in Tunisia, in the desert, where there was a fire that had been built, and in the dying embers at the edge of the fire, they were roasting what they called a shepherd's salad, mashouya, which is all different kinds of vegetables, things like garlic, onions, peppers, that are roasted and then steamed until the peel loosens, and then finally they're chopped up and seasoned. So take a look at what I have back here. I have a red pepper that's blistered black on the outside. I'm going to put it into a bowl along with a couple of other peppers that I've already cooked. Here is another red pepper. Here's a whole head of garlic. And what I've got here inside the papery husk is basically roasted garlic. Here is an eggplant, and you can see it's completely soft. It's given up. I'm going to set that over here because we're going to use it in a second. And then finally I have an onion. And onions are sort of a tough nut to crack. They are a little bit firmer and fuller, so you can see that this one is still firm. I'm going to take this and just bury it in the embers, and I'm going to leave it there until it's soft and caramelized, and then the worst of the black gets peeled away, and I send it to the kitchen to work with. Now, these right here need to be steamed a little bit, and the easiest way to do it is to put it between 2 bowls and then just set this aside so that later on, when I come back to it, they can be peeled. I'm going to push this grill forward, remembering that I've got an onion in there. And you can see here, I have some onions that were cooked on top of the grill. You can do it on top of the grill, but this idea of using the dying embers of a fire to make a shepherd's salad is really a great little technique. All right. Now, what are we going to do with these ember roasted vegetables? Take a look at what I have here. Here are 2 peppers that were roasted in the embers. They're cool now, and what I'm going to do is peel them. I'm going to take the peel and just set it aside, and you can see the peel comes off relatively easily. A lot of people want to take this and put it right under the water at the sink, and when they do, all the wonderful roasted, smoky flavor of the embers is lost down the drain. So don't ever make that mistake. Once it's peeled, I'm going to take this and just drop it in the food processor. I've got a second that I'm going to peel. You can do this while they're hot, but it's really not much fun. Better by far that you let this cool a little bit, and then your job becomes very, very easy. And we'll take the core out of this one as well. And any of these juices make their way in to the food processor. And let's set that aside. Now, I'm going to make a sauce called mohamara. It's from the Eastern Mediterranean, and its name translates roughly into brick colored or brick red. So it gets part of its color from these peppers, and I'm going to add also some walnuts. There is a rich tradition in the Mediterranean of nut-enriched sauces. Probably the one that we're all familiar with is pesto, but romesco sauce and this mohamara also has nuts in there. It makes a great tasting sauce, a thick sauce with nuts, also kind of a nutritional powerhouse. So we're going to begin the process of making this sauce just by grinding everything up. Now, in terms of seasoning, let me stop so I don't have to yell. In terms of seasoning, I'm going to put some chili paste in here. And this is a Turkish chili paste, but any sort of hot chili paste will do. If you've got something from Thailand even, as long as it's not sweet, I think that would be appropriate. This typically has cumin, toasted cumin that goes in there, and I'm going to add that as well. Quick word about the chilies. This sauce is not known for being fiery hot, so don't overdo it with the chili paste. Then I'm going to add some lemon juice and some bread. And this bread will absorb any of the moisture that is excess in this sauce. All right, now, again, I'm going to turn this on. Woo! I can guarantee you this will need some salt, so let's go ahead with the salt. Now, one quick thought here. In the portions of the Mediterranean that haven't embraced alcohol for religious reasons, they don't have vinegar. And without vinegar, you have to find new and different ways to make your food sour. So I added some lemon juice, but here's another great ingredient, pomegranate molasses, which has this delicious sweet sour flavor that really defines this particular dip, mohamara. And then finally, to lend some richness to this dish, we're going to emulsify it with olive oil. And that's all there is to it. I'm just going to give it a quick taste test. It's really a delicious, delicious dip. Let me hit it with a little bit more salt. And this is a dish that we made using our ember roasted peppers. And there's the first of a couple of different dips. Now, let's make another. You remember these fellas. These are the fire roasted eggplants that just came out of the fire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one, shake any dust off, and I'm going to carefully, with a sharp knife, just cut it in half. Now, this has been roasted to the point where it is completely cooked. It has to give up. It has to collapse. Otherwise, it's going to taste awkward. And we're going to take this, and we're going to scrape the pulp from the shell right into a bowl. I'll do it with this piece as well. And this eggplant that came off the grill, still a little bit warm. We can play the same game with that. I can smell already this incredible smoky aroma that is left behind by the embers. All right. Now, likely you are already familiar with a dip/sauce called hummus, which is made with chickpeas and tahini and garlic. This sauce that I'm going to make is a similar version to hummus, save for the fact that instead of chickpeas, I'm using the eggplant. It's called either baba ganoush, or some people call it mutabel, depending on where in the Mediterranean it comes from. In here goes tahini. This is sesame seed paste. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. Just some cayenne pepper for heat. We'll add the salt right now. And then lemon juice is important to brighten this up and cut through the richness of all of that tahini. And then all we're going to do is begin the process of taking this and just stirring it up, just break it up. Now, if there's big pieces of the skin, you can take those out, but a small little piece of char here and there I don't think is a problem at all. That really tells a flavor story about this dish. That's all there is to it. This is done save for the fact that we need to taste it. Needs a little bit more seasoning. And here again, I'm going to enrich it with olive oil. Over here on the grill, I have some lemons that I've been cooking just so that they give up their juice more readily. And that is going to be baba ganoush. If you like the idea of herbs in there, a little bit of cilantro is nice, but at its most basic, baba ganoush is done. And let me put that together in a bowl. There's number 2. And the last of these 3 sauces, this has nothing to do with ember roasted dishes, but these sauces from the Mediterranean are incredibly versatile. And so here's one more that I would just love to share with you. This is called tzatziki or jajik, depending on where in the Mediterranean you are. It is a sauce that's made from yogurt and cucumbers. And if the yogurt can be the really thick Greek yogurt, so much the better. And we are going to dress that with some cumin, some lemon juice, and I've got mint and cilantro here, all chopped up and ready to go. Some people put dill, especially if you're doing tzatziki, which is the Greek version of this. They will use dill oftentimes, but mint is delicious as well. And I'm a big advocate of cilantro. I love it. I know some people have trouble with it. They think it tastes soapy, but I'm not one of them. A little bit more salt, and we'll have a run at this. And there is the last of our 3 sauces. Having these on hand, anytime you make fire roasted vegetables or anytime you grill vegetables and you're looking for a sauce to go along, or a piece of fish or a piece of chicken, these are invaluable. The mutabel with lamb, delicious. This over here with roasted vegetables, this with lamb or even fish is great. We're going to use it in just a second on a really special sandwich that I think you're going to enjoy. All right, I want to make a great sandwich that's unlike any sandwich you've ever eaten. It features not luncheon meat, not hamburgers, not hot dogs. It features eggplant. And I've got thick sliced eggplant here, and I'm going to brush it with garlic oil, which is nothing more than olive oil with a little bit of garlic chopped into it. Be a little bit careful to make this when you're ready to use it, and if you don't use it all up, put it in the refrigerator. This is a potentially hazardous concoction, and though it seems so common, do yourself a favor and don't let it sit around out at room temperature. A little bit of salt goes on here, a little bit of pepper as well, and finally some toasted and ground cumin. And that's ready to go. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is that eggplant is thirsty. It will take almost as much oil as you give it. So be a little bit careful not to give it too much. As it starts to cook and the cell structure begins to break down, it will release a little bit of the oil that you initially put on it. It's a sponge. Okay, so I'm going to season the other side with cumin, with salt and pepper. And just a little bit more garlic oil. And then we'll just keep our eye on this so that it browns beautifully. Now, I love the way grilled eggplant tastes. It tastes meaty to me, and I think a lot of people would agree that it can stand in for meat for somebody who's not interested in eating meat. The only challenge you'll face is if you don't cook it enough. If it's undercooked and a little bit chewy, that's not good. So make sure that it's very, very tender. I'm going to just take a quick look at its progress here. So I think we're fine. It's not a bad idea to be a little cautious when you put things on a grill. Every grill has a different temperature, and while you can evaluate it with your hand, there's no better way than just seeing how the food is responding. Sweet food browns more quickly. Lean food like this that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it will brown more slowly. All right, remember all of our ember roasted vegetables. I've got them here, and what I'd like to do is just cut them up so that we can use them in our sandwich. They're all peeled. I'm going to take all the seeds out. Or most of the seeds, huh? I'll take those and set them aside. Here is a beautiful yellow pepper. I take the core out. I'm going to tear it open and lay that down here too. Here is a pepper that has a little bit of heat to it. This is an Anaheim chili. The flesh tends to be a little thinner. I'll open that up and lay it down. Maybe one more red pepper. It's an easy thing just to pull the seeds out. We're going to cut all of these vegetables at the same time. So just take your time with a nice sharp knife, and before you know it, you've made quick work of this. The shepherd's salad that I was sharing with you before, the one from Tunisia, mashouya oftentimes is flavored with capers and with olives, but this is really where it begins, with ember roasted vegetables like this, so that they're a little bit more reasonable. I'm going to cut them in half, maybe again here, and by the time we mix in those onions, this is a salad that is just about ready to go. If you put some fresh herbs, squeezed on a little bit of lemon juice, and drizzled on a little bit of olive oil, you'd be well on your way. But I think this will make a nice addition to the sandwiches that we're going to put together. The other things that I've got for the sandwich look a little bit more recognizable for sandwich filling. We've got some tomatoes here. Nice ripe tomatoes. And a sharp knife is the order of the day. We'll put those there. We're going to put some, or make available some lettuce leaves. If people want to put lettuce in their sandwich, I think that's a nice idea. And I especially like these tiny little leaves on the inside of a head of romaine. So don't ever make the mistake of throwing those out. And then I have some mint leaves here. And what I'm going to do is just chop them. This makes a really refreshing addition to a sandwich, a vegetable sandwich like the one we're making. I'm going to fluff this up. I've cut it into ribbons, and I'm going to lift and just set this over here. One thing you'll notice is that the stems, because they are heavier than the leaves, all fall to the bottom, And there they are, and I'm just going to discard those. And everything for our sandwich is ready. We're just waiting on the eggplant right now. When you're grilling, it's not a bad idea to give yourself a little bit of extra time. There's going to be some unexpected delays likely, or you could have the opposite problem. The opposite problem would be not unexpected delays, but your fire is so hot that things cook crazy fast. We're at a point right now where it started to cook. The cell structure of the eggplant is beginning to break down, and I can help a little bit of that oil out of the cells just by pressing this down. This will also take the second side of the eggplant and move it closer to the grill so that it will brown more quickly. All right, come on, let me show you the eggplant because it looks beautiful. I want you to notice that it's browned. That's important for flavor's sake. But more than that, I want you to notice that it is completely cooked. There is no firmness to this at all. It's going to eat like a really delicious, tender piece of meat. So off it comes. I can smell the cumin and the garlic and the olive oil that bathed it before it went on the grill. So it's time for us to make sandwiches. I want to use a little bit of the tzatziki and a little bit of the muhammara. Think of these as ketchup and mayonnaise with a Greek or a Turkish passport, and I think you're barking up the right tree. So I'm going to open up a pita bread. If they're not fresh, you can take them and put them on the grill for a second and warm them up, but these are nice. And what I want to do is put first some tzatziki in here. People can always add more later on, so don't overdo it. And then a nice smear of the muhammara. Next, along the back, I'm going to put a leaf or two of lettuce. I'm going to add some tomato and some of these beautiful ember grilled vegetables. And then finally, let's take a couple of slices of eggplant, cut them in half, and layer those right in the sandwich as well. I think I can probably get 3 nice pieces in there. And just to top it off, a little bit of mint. All right, so there's one. This is the kind of thing that people could build themselves if you gave them all the components, and they could add more or less as you to their own taste. First, some tzatziki, a nice shloop of muhammara. We're going to tuck just a few of these lettuce leaves across the back, followed by tomatoes and steak, some ember grilled vegetables, and then this delicious grilled eggplant. This looks a little bit pedestrian for you. There's nothing to stop you from putting more sauce on top where it can show. Hit it with the mint. And there are 2 beautiful sandwiches and 3 delicious sauces to go along. Grilled eggplant sandwiches with 3 very distinctive dips from the Mediterranean: tzatziki, muhammara, and baba ganoush. So before we leave the Mediterranean, I'd be remiss if we didn't cook some kebabs. You all know shish kebab, but there are many, many different varieties of kebabs, and I want to show you just a few of them. I've got some lamb here. This is leg of lamb that's been cubed up about 1 inch on a side. All of it has been marinated in salt, pepper, olive oil, and garlic. I'm going to do a little bit of something different with each, and so pay attention. This is going to come fast and furious. Here is some lamb that I'm going to put on the grill, and as I said, olive oil, garlic, salt and pepper. I'm going to flavor this the way you might find it in Greece, with marjoram and with lemon juice, neither of which need to cook, and so I'm going to add those things later on. Now, the next lamb is this right here. I'm going to flavor as though it were coming from Turkey. And they have a delicious spice mix for all kinds of meat and even vegetables called baharat. And I've got the spices lined up here. So very, very quickly, I want to share with you what's going in. These 3 greens, one of them is mint, one is oregano, and one is bay leaf, all ground up. So those 3 go in. This is coriander. That's the seed from cilantro. It has sort of a citrusy flavor. This is cumin. I think you're all familiar with that. And then we move into sweet spices. Nutmeg, cloves, and allspice. Cinnamon, I think you all know. So those are the sweet spices. And then finally, some cayenne pepper for a little bit of a burn. And the last is mustard. That gives us some pungency. All right, so I'll set that aside and we can stir this all together. Now, this won't keep forever. I would say you want to use it up in a month or 6 weeks. Just keep it in a tightly closed jar. Anyhow, I'm going to add this spice mix to these lamb kebabs. Turn it over, the same. And as soon as this hits the grill, I can guarantee you, you will be floored by how great it smells. This little piece of foil right here protects the ends of the skewers so they don't burn. All right, the last, I've got some lamb right here that I skewered actually on sticks of rosemary or branches of rosemary, and I chopped some extra rosemary and some thyme. We'll put pepper and salt on there as well. We'll roll it around, and the skewer will actually flavor this meat from the inside as it cooks. A nice hot fire because this meat is fairly small, and I don't want to waste any of this garlic oil. This will be ready in about 5 minutes. Okay, our lamb kebabs are done. I have here on the cutting board some marjoram. Marjoram is close cousin to oregano, but I got to tell you, it is floral and delicate and is really a great complement to lamb. And so I'm going to chop that up. It's a tender herb, so it cooks fairly quickly. I'm going to serve that Greek lamb on a plate with a little bit of the tzatziki that we made earlier. So here are the 3 kebabs that have nothing on them at this point except for oil and garlic. And what I want to do is sprinkle on plenty of this marjoram while the meat is still hot so that it can absorb the heat and give off the essential oils that I'm looking for. And then just a little bit of lemon juice over the top. And that is kebab number 1. Next, I have some of the baba ganoush that we made. This is the eggplant dip. And what I want to do is grab the meat that has the baharat, or the spice rub from the Eastern Mediterranean, Turkey. And we're going to put that right on here. And I think just a little drizzle of olive oil and a drop or 2 of lemon. And that dish, maybe with some of the fresh, uncooked rub sprinkled over the top. Very aromatic. I'll set that aside. And then finally, the last plate is for the rosemary skewered lamb. 1, 2, 3. And if anybody is interested in squeezing lemon over it themselves, I'm going to tuck these right on the plate. So, 3 Mediterranean kebabs, all lamb, all delicious, all very distinctive, and I can guarantee you, you'll enjoy every one of them.